Grab some scraps and a blending brush. This one's gonna surprise you. Let's get crafting. This one I'm gonna start with a floral image for my focal point. This one's by Woodware. It's an older stamp and it's called Mini Floral Wonders, along with some dye inks. Now, if you know me, you know that I tend to stick with my Distress Oxide, so I decided to change it up and use my Distress inks, along with a sprayer because I want a little texture. To keep things tidy, I am using a Tim Holtz replacement silicone mat, and I'm going to go ahead and I have stamped out 4 of my focal images because I'm making multiple cards today, and I'm going to go ahead and do an ink smush onto my silicone mat with Mowed Lawn. Give it a quick spritz, and we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of watercolor. If the thought of watercoloring or painting in general gives you heart palpitations, don't let it. Just have fun. The more water you add, the lighter the color. The less water you add, the darker, more robusta color. I'm not using traditional watercolors. It doesn't matter. I could use Crayola watercolors and still get the same type of effect. So use what you've got and create the focal image that is pleasing to your eye. Now make sure you stick around because I've got an amazing surprise for so many doubters out there towards the end of the video. Now I'm switching up to my pink dye inks. I'm using Picked Raspberry and Kitsch Flamingo, and once again just doing a quick watercolor. If watercoloring a focal point is not your jam, well, no worry. You can use anything you've got in your stash. Use a piece of ephemera, cut out something from a piece of pattern paper and create your own ephemera. Use layered die cuts. The sky's really the limit here. You could even use a sticker, whatever you've got. With my focal image done, I'm going to work on my background. So I have 2 pieces of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch Recollections cardstock. I did opt for 2 colors so that you could see what I was doing. Doesn't matter what your top color is. And I'm going to tear it randomly towards me. That way I kind of get a funky edge. In retrospect, it probably would have been better if I had used a slightly larger panel to do my torn paper technique, because it would have held down to my grip mat a little bit better. But I'm going to fix that up with a little bit of washi tape. No harm, no foul. Now I'm creating an opening. I want a gap. And it doesn't matter where you put the gap, but this one I kind of decided to have towards the left side of a vertical top folding card. And I'm going to use the same Distress inks, Kitsch Flamingo and Picked Raspberry. And as you can see, I write the word dye on a set of my blending brushes. That way I don't mix my hybrids with my dye inks. Regardless of the brand of dye ink that you use, understand that dye inks are literally dyeing your cardstock. So they sink into those card fibers, and dye inks tend to be translucent in color. It's going to take quite a bit more ink to build up the color. So honestly, I think I'm starting with the lighter color here, Kitsch Flamingo, and I'm just putting down some color in that gap. You don't have to think about it, just lay it down until you get to something that you like. I kind of was going for a mottled look, kind of splotchy, and don't worry, it's still going to dry back a little bit and it's going to be beautiful. So don't overstress or overthink this. I'm bringing back my focal image stamp, and I'm going to apply it to an acrylic block this time, and I'm leaving my torn paper mask of sorts in place. I am using VersaFine pigment ink. This one is Onyx Black. Now this is primarily the most used black ink that I have. It's super crisp, and I'm just going to stamp down multiple images off of that torn paper. So it kind of looks like I'm creating my own pattern paper here for that little area that we've added color to. I'm going to go ahead and re-ink my stamp and switch it up so that I get a different image this time around. If you're new to the craft, pigment ink sits on top of the cardstock and remains wetter longer. It's great for embossing. I've flipped my image around and I'm just lining it up where I think I want it, and I'm pressing it down. I do hold it down for a couple of extra seconds just to make sure that I get a decent impression, because when you're using an acrylic block, it's kind of a one-shot deal. It's very hard to line that stamp back up. If you're really, really good at it, then you can get it, but I'm not that good, so I know that I need to make it the first go around. You're also dealing with stamping on 2 different levels of cardstock. So by giving it a little extra pressure, you make sure you get that good impression that you're looking for. I thought I might add a little bit more to this background. So I'm just inking up the leaf portion of the stamp, and I'm going to kind of slide that in to where there's a little opening or gap in that background. Now I'm remembering this time that I did use pigment ink. It doesn't dry as quickly, so I am going to carefully remove my washi tape because I am going to use these masks again, and I'm revealing what I did on my actual card panel after I dropped the mask a few times. It's all good. It'll work out. My preferred cardstock for card paces is Accent Opaque 100 pound. It's about 276 GSM, I believe. And I do top folding cards. So I cut on the short side at 4 1/4 inches to create my long strip. And then I score at 5 1/2 inches and fold. Now that's all that's left to decide is if I want this to be a full panel or not. Now I've opted to go ahead and leave this a full panel. I am using Barely Arts Precision Craft Glue. It is my favorite glue of choice. And I've gone ahead and just added a thin strip to the edges of my cardstock and some down the center. And I line it up and give it a good firm press. After I glue my panel to my card base, it's at this point where I realize I don't like it. And that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody does something that, well, we could have done better. So I'm going to show you my take on how to fix this. Using a piece of scrap copy paper, I am using a brand new card base, and I'm just wrapping my card base around my copy paper. And I'm going to go ahead and, using the exact same colors of inks, I'm just going to create my own colored cardstock. Now I only need the edge because I'm going to cut my panel apart from the previous base and use it as a panel on this new card base. I did opt for the darker color, the picked raspberry, to do my edges with. And again, this is dye ink. I need to do a little bit more than I normally would for my oxides. And I'm kind of making it dark on the edge, fading in towards the center of the card to make it look lighter there. I hope that makes sense. I am going to go around all 4 edges, and I'm pairing it up against my card panel just to make sure I like what I see. Now, since I've already cut apart my panel from that previous card base, I'm using my trimmer here. This is a Fiskars trimmer, and I'm cutting this panel down to 3 3/4 inches by 5. I've also cut down an additional panel of black Recollections cardstock, and I've cut that one down to 4 by 5 1/4. I want to create a frame. Now, looking at the card panel against the base, it doesn't really have much of a pop or a wow factor. Add that black frame and it all changes because you're bringing the black from the ink into some other element of the card. Now, my preferred adhesive is liquid glue because it allows me to pick it up and reposition, whereas double-sided tape wouldn't give you that same benefit. With a very thin black panel, you should now see the pop and wow that we're going to get from this card. I'm also bringing black into it by adding a white on black sentiment. Liquid glue allows me to also place my sentiment just where I want it with just a little bit of wiggle room. Now I did opt to pop up my focal floral image with some double-sided foam tape, and once again I will top my foam tape with a little bit of liquid glue so that I have just that little extra bit of wiggle room should I need it. While you can leave it as is, I felt that this needed that little pop of green, so I went ahead and did some floral die cuts, and I'm going to add this to the same layer as the floral panel, so it's not being stuck down by the foam tape that's in the back. I didn't want there to be a separation of height here. Now I've got the element of balance that I was looking for, a pop of green, and that black really brings out that pink. All I need to do is add a personal note of sentiment on the inside, and she's done. When I started this video, I told you that I started with the focal image. I kind of told you a little white lie. So what I started with was the technique. I knew that I wanted to do stamped images that were quickly colored on some sort of background, be it ink smushing or ink blending. It didn't matter. That really wasn't where I was going. I just wanted quick color onto a stamped image onto a background, creating my own pattern background paper, if you please. Still not exactly where I started, but I knew the technique that I wanted to use. So I used something that so many of you told me in a poll question that you don't use, you don't like, and you feel it squashes your creativity. And I want to show you that this simple item that there are droves of on Pinterest, that you can use it. It doesn't squash your creativity, and sometimes it does something that you ordinarily wouldn't get out of your own card making, and that's a card sketch. So this is an old photo album that I didn't have photos in, and I decided to use it for card sketches. So I find them all over the place. These are like really old. I found these on Pinterest years and years ago. There's some, I don't even know where a lot of these came from. This is cardstv.blogspot.com, justcrafts.com, Lisa Heidi, sketchandscrap.blogspot.com, but you can find them anywhere, okay? So the one that I opted to use was this one. This is by Mojo Monday. And again, I got it on Pinterest. I don't know if I could ever find it again, but the fact is that you can use anything. And as you can see, it's got a stripe, a rectangle, another rectangle, and what would seemingly be something for a sentiment, and possibly some sort of focal image. That's where I got my focal image of my flower. Okay, here's my stripe. I used that torn paper edge and stamped it, so I got a little bit more interest. Here's my stripe. I'm not using any of the measurements, honestly, and I opted not to use any of this. Instead of using my floral as my sort of focal element behind, I put it on top. And that's how I use the card sketch. In this second example, I decided to take my torn paper edge and turn it around. This time I used some pattern paper, and I did use the rectangle that I framed out. Here's my floral, added my floral, and instead of the stripe all the way across, I opted for a small sentiment. But let me show you what else I did with it. In this case, I turned it on a diagonal. I still used a rectangle, although it's smaller. I kind of opted for something smaller. I didn't use the same sizes. And once again, here's my floral element. I did add a couple of perfect pearl dots, and again, my sentiment. And last but not least, change up your color scheme. Change up the direction of your card. Remember how our card was going this way? Well, guess what? This one, I did this way. And as you can see, I kind of messed it up. But it didn't turn out to be a mess up, because all I did was reposition my masked paper, which was really too small, as you recall, and I just readjusted it and put another line. So it did give it some added dimension. I opted to leave the floral out of this altogether. I didn't use these. And I went ahead and used some stars that I just stamped and heat embossed. Added the gold to balance out that heat emboss, and a gold die cut congrats. But that's how you can use a sketch to leapfrog your card designs. And there are so many options. You don't have to stick to something like this, because look at how all of this came out in the long run. Can you see yourself using a card sketch now? Let me know in the comments below. And before you go, check out some other videos that I've selected just for you. Until next time, I'll see you real soon.